question for you. I don't know if it's everybody look at their computer. I remember the left corner, when somebody's speaking, the line goes across the first two. So if I just hit on it, will it go away? I just can't see.
Megan's still there with me.
Yeah, she just left. Like I can't just see.
I'm some notes off.
Anybody starts speaking.
Megan's coming back. There's different layouts. So right now your default layout is just you see the person who's speaking, but there's like a grid layout too, and some other ones that might you might like better.
If somebody speaks, what do you think? It stays up.
No, it stays like that.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's virtual Raleigh City Council meeting. We will start today with the consent agenda. I have one item to pull. It is I-1, 406 Hillsborough Street, grease interceptor and soil nail wall. Barn Hill has been working on the 400H project for more than 4 years. So I would like to ask to be recused from this vote. So if somebody could make that motion. Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, seconded by Councilmember Melton. All in favor? Okay, that was unanimous, clerk. So I'm going to take the vote on the consent agenda first, and then I will hand it over to you, Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. So consent agenda, do we have a motion to approve? Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, seconded by Councilmember Melton. All in favor? Okay, that was unanimous, clerk. I'll hand it over to you, Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. Thank you.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda I-1 for 406 Hillsborough Street? Councilmember Melton, seconded by Councilmember Knight. All in favor? Any opposed? Clerk, that's a 7-1 vote. Nope, 6-1 vote. I can count. Thank you. And we can bring Mayor back. All good.
Was anybody opposed to that vote?
Thank you. Clerk has it. I'll just stop talking.
7-0, right?
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Ken Bowers with the Planning and Development Department. So I'll start as usual with a reminder as to what's currently scheduled for public hearing. Nothing for the first Tuesday in October, but we have 5 items, 3 annexations, 1 zoning case, and some public nuisance abatements scheduled for September 21st. That we'll be recommending some more items for that date today. So on our list is 1 request for a time extension of 6 items recommended for the September 21st public hearing and 1 item recommended for the October 5th public hearing. So I'll go through these in order and then we'll take down the presentation so you can act. The first request for time extension, these are some parcels on Hillsborough Street at Bagwell Avenue near Dixie Trail. Request to rezone for up to 7 stories in the CX district with shopfront frontage and conditions applied. The applicant is continuing to have dialogue with the neighbors. At the time the Planning Commission had to act on this, a second neighborhood meeting had not been scheduled. It is scheduled now for September 15th, and the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to request a 60-day extension, which would give them ample time to consider the matter once that second neighborhood meeting has been held. Can someone else advance the slides since the controls here are not working? Thank you. Okay, so we move on to the items to be scheduled for public hearing. The first one is rezoning Z2021. This is almost 35 acres from OX3 to OX5 and OX5 to CX12. This is located at the corner of Blue Ridge Road and Reedy Creek Road, and you may recognize this as the future site of the DHHS headquarters. Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval. The staff has recommended the September 21st public hearing date. As I think everyone on the council is aware, there is some time sensitivity associated with this particular request as the state is moving rapidly on this project. Next item is an amendment to zoning conditions for about an acre of land currently zoned OX3 located at I-40 and Jones Franklin Road. Existing conditions date to 2000, and this would tweak those conditions. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval. We've recommended the September 21st hearing date. Then the next item is at Pool Road and Sunnybrook Road. This is also another item where the base district is not changing. So it's essentially a change to zoning conditions. This is under 2 acres. Planning Commission has recommended approval on a 6-0 vote. We're recommending the 21st for the public hearing. These are some parcels, 3 parcels on Ben Burr Road. This is south of Lynn Road in northwest Raleigh. About 3.7 acres to be rezoned from R4 to R6 conditional use. The density permitted by the conditions is just over 4 units per the acre. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval. Staff recommends the September 21st public hearing. TC 521 is an update to the city tree manual. This has been drafted to replace outdated information, make the manual more user-friendly, correct errors, and provide clarity. Again, a unanimous recommendation to approve. Staff recommends September 21st. TC 17A20 is the amendment to the Transit Overlay District. This is part of the critical path to mapping the TOD district, starting with the Western Boulevard BRT line. So it has a variety of changes to it, to the TOD district, intended to encourage housing variety and to ensure active, walkable, transit-friendly neighborhoods. 6-0 approval. There is a request from the Planning Commission as part of their motion for a future study of how the affordable housing provisions included in the text change are working once we've had time to evaluate that, and the ordinance has been on the ground for some time. So, but the Planning Commission made a couple tweaks to that and has unanimously recommended approval. We're recommending September 21st. And then the last item I have for you, which is the only one that we're currently recommending for the October 5th public hearing, it's about 1/2 acre located on the southwest corner of West Jones Street and North Boylan Avenue. It is in the North Boylan NCOD. The proposed zoning would remove that NCOD from these properties and rezone from a base district of OX3 with the detached frontage to an OX7 urban limited frontage with conditions. Among the conditions are a cap on the building's height in feet. Planning Commission recommended approval 6-0, and there was some significant public comment at the Planning Commission meetings. We're recommending the evening public hearing for October 5th. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, everybody, thank you. Ken, I'm going to take this, first off, I'm going to take this one by one and we'll approve it. And Ken, I'll ask if there's any questions for you, if you could stay there. But first we will start with Z6820. They are requesting the 60-day time extension. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about that? Okay. Could I get a motion to approve that extension? Councilmember Fort, do I have a second? Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, all in favor? Okay, clerk, that is unanimous. Next, we have the rezoning Z 2021-3095 Reedy Creek Road. Does anybody have any questions of Ken on this item? Councilmember Melton?
We're already getting some emails about this case, and I understand that there's a time sensitivity with the state's timeline. I'm just curious about why it's being recommended for the second meeting of September, where we do public hearings in the afternoon, and not the first meeting in October, where we do public hearings in the evening. I just want to make sure that everyone who wants to be heard on this case has an opportunity to be heard, and we typically schedule cases that have expecting a lot of comment for the evening.
So I can relay that there was not a lot of comment at the Planning Commission, but of course that doesn't mean that there will not be public comment interested in the public hearing. It sounds like you're hearing from folks. So obviously this is a council decision. Staff has no objection to moving it to October 5th.
Can I ask a question? Is the applicant there?
No.
Jamie is the attorney on this. Okay.
Yes, she is. Ms. Schwadler is the attorney. She's not in the room right now. One option would be, if you feel the need to discuss this with the applicant, is to delay action till this evening's meeting.
Councilmember Melton, do you have?
I mean, if they didn't request the meeting in September, I'd prefer to set it for the first meeting in October, just because I'm getting emails on it. And so I would prefer to let people have the opportunity to be heard before we vote on it. But that would be my recommendation. We typically put projects where there's going to be significant comment on the evening meeting. So that would be the first meeting in October.
Okay, so why don't we do this? You make the motion to approve that, Councilmember Melton, and then I will check in with the applicant before tonight's meeting to make sure this is okay.
I move to set it for October 5th.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Branch has seconded. All in favor? Okay. Next we have, that was unanimous, clerk. Next we have rezoning Z2921 on Jones Franklin Road. Does anybody have any questions on this for Ken? Okay. Do we have a motion to recommend the public hearing date of September 21st? This is going to be a long meeting, folks, if we're not moving forward. Thank you, Councilmember Fort. Do we have a second? Councilmember Knight. All in favor? Okay, that was unanimous, clerk. Next, we have rezoning Z3321. This is Pool Road and Sunnybrook Road. This would set the hearing date for September 21st. Is that a motion to approve, Councilmember Branch? Do we have a second? Councilmember Fort, seconded. All in favor? Okay, that was unanimous, clerk. Next is Z4221, Benbow Road, Woodland Road. September 21st hearing date. Do we have a motion to approve that? Councilmember Buffkin has made the motion and Councilmember Melton has seconded. All in favor? Okay, that was unanimous, clerk. Next, we have text change TC 521. This is the city tree manual update, September 21st hearing. Do we have a motion to approve? Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, do we have a second? Councilmember Melton, all in favor? Okay. Unanimous, clerk. Text change TC.
I was opposed. I was opposed. I'm sorry, I was opposed.
Okay, so that was 7-1 to hold the public hearing. Text change T17 20 Transit Overlay District. Do we have a motion to approve? Councilmember Melton and Mayor Pro Tem Stewart has seconded. All in favor?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we this immediately. I get it. I would prefer this is on October the 5th for this because it is a transit overlay and what's needed. So I just want to voice that.
Well, we had a motion.
There was
to
internal
approve.
discussion with staff. We don't believe it will have a material impact on the progress of the remapping if it goes to October 5th instead.
So would you like to make a substitute motion then?
Yes, I would. I like to move that we have the public hearing on October 5th.
Okay, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Okay, that is moved to October 5th. Right, and then we have rezoning Z1821. This is also scheduled, recommended for October 5th, Boylan Avenue. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Fort has made the motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Branch. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to special items. This is rezoning Z6720 at 3249 Blue Line is we had to set the public hearing on this. And staff is recommending October 5th. Have new conditions been submitted on this, Bynum?
No, ma'am, the conditions have not changed, but we have received the necessary signatures since this appeared on report of the Planning Commission at the last meeting. So you're ready to take action today to set the public hearing.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Bynum on this? All right, if we could take down the, thank you. I can't see everybody when that's up. Do we have any questions for Bynum on this? Okay, do we have a motion to set the public hearing for October 5th? Councilmember Branch, seconded by Councilmember Melton. All in favor? Okay, that is unanimous. All right, next special item is playsets and accessory structure setbacks. Justin?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Justin Romero with Planning and Development. This is an item coming back to you at your request from your last meeting related to setbacks and other rules for swing sets, play sets, and other similar accessory structures. So the UDO kind of categorizes swing sets and play sets along with a host of other items into what are called accessory structures, and it includes, in addition to other items, most of the things you see here on the screen, things like detached garages, carports, garden sheds, and gazebos, in addition to swing sets, play sets, other types of smaller ancillary structures that are on a lot associated with a single-family home. The UDO does provide a definition for these structures. I won't read it to you, but just will note that it is a broad definition. As you can see on the screen there, it does encompass most structures that are greater than 4 feet in height and associated with, again, the principal structure on the lot. And so what does the code regulate in relation to accessory structures? You can see the two tables on the right side of the screen here. The top table lays out size limitations in both floor area and footprint that are based on zoning district and the size of the lot. The bottom table there provides standards for both overall building height and side wall height, and then, of course, setbacks. So I'll just draw your attention to the second to last row of that bottom table that provides the setback regulations for accessory structures. And you can see that they range from no smaller than 10 feet for a one-story structure and up to 20 feet for a two-story structure. Other considerations and provisions that the code provides, it does not permit encroachments into any setbacks or height for accessory structures. Principal buildings on a lot are afforded some encroachments, including things like chimneys and solar panels into height limits, things like eaves, decks, bay windows. Certain other building features and elements are permitted to encroach into side and rear setbacks for principal structures, but not for accessory structures. The code does also does not permit the Board of Adjustment to grant variances to the accessory structure rules. So one does not have the same relief mechanism or option that they would for setbacks or other rules associated with principal structures. So if council would like to address any specific concerns about these rules through a text change, you have a few options. One would be a narrowly tailored text change to specifically address the item that you discussed at your last meeting, which was play sets. That would include likely a combination of amending the definition that we saw earlier, and in addition to, or providing some more flexible, specific regulations that are tailored to those sorts of play sets and other structures. Another option would be to authorize a text change for a more broad, comprehensive approach. This is an area that staff has identified as an area of need through our kind of ongoing audit of the UDO and had planned to bring forward as part of a future omnibus text change. So in addition to the items we saw earlier related to encroachments and the lack of the Board of Adjustment authority to grant hardship variances, we've also noted that setbacks for accessory dwelling units and accessory structures are inconsistent. Most ADUs can be as close as 5 feet to a side or rear property line, even if they are part of some larger accessory structure, for example, an ADU on top of a detached garage on the second floor. Whereas we saw earlier the setbacks, the smallest setbacks for a detached accessory structure without an ADU would be 10 feet and up to 20 feet for a two-story structure. And then finally, the UDO does not provide any separate options for temporary or seasonal structures, specifically those related to farming or gardening. The same rules that apply that we saw earlier would apply to temporary and seasonal structures as well. So with either of these options, staff would conduct research and with option one could likely bring a text change back to the Planning Commission late October timeline. Obviously, option two is a little broader and may take a little while, probably closer to a late winter timeline for that. I would just note that any active enforcement or violation cases would be stayed if council does authorize either or both of these options until the text change goes through the process. And would also note that if timing were a concern, staff could also bring these back in pieces or bring back an immediate text change followed up with another one if council wishes to do so. So I will pause there and happy to answer any specific questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Councilmember Branch.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I guess my question is, what brought this about was around a play set in a backyard. So my question is around option two. Are there any other situations that would need us to focus on possibly option two? Because as of right now, I think option one personally is the best fit because we can, identify and tackle the item at hand, which is around play set. So is there any other conditions or situations that need to be cleaned up?
I would say some of the items we saw in option two there that staff has identified, for example, the Board of Adjustment being able to grant variances, aligning the ADU and accessory structure setbacks. If you're asking about other specific structures, yes, as you saw, the definition it's very broad. It essentially encompasses everything that's taller than 4 feet in height. So, staff often has to rely on interpretations of the code to regulate things like, or not regulate things like, flagpoles or pet structures and those sorts of things, because they obviously meet that definition as well. So, with either option, staff would hope to be able to clear some of that out and provide some clear exceptions to the definition.
Mayor Pro Tem Stewart.
Thank you. I actually want to appreciate that staff took a more holistic approach and view in going after this request from council. And so I would be in favor of option two and in doing the larger text change.
Okay. Councilmember Buffkin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the council members who asked great questions. And Councilmember Stewart, I agree. Our staff has done good work for us here. Council members, you may recall I brought this to the council's attention to resolve an issue with Callie's playset, a constituent in my district. I do agree it's a good time and an opportunity for us to take a broader look. I'd suggest that we authorize both and would like to see option one with the play sets put on a fast track that the staff had sort of laid out with an October or so timeframe for the Planning Commission, and then option 2 can go on the slow track, and we'll take our time, make sure we're being responsible and getting that right as we address the broader policy issues. So I would suggest that we authorize both text change and do it in a kind of a two-step process.
Okay, Councilmember Melton.
I guess my question or concern about, I support option 2 as well. Are we duplicating work by having them do one text change for the play sets and then a whole nother text change, which it seems like the play sets fits in option 2. Option 2 is bigger. I'm just concerned that we're duplicating work and we're going to go back and undo something we've already done by having them go on separate tracks. I guess that would be a staff question.
I was going to say, I think that's a question for staff.
Yeah.
Certainly, we can do it either way. Again, it'd be the difference likely in our best estimate of probably a month to 6 weeks longer for option 2. It would be 2 separate text changes that would go through the full typical process individually and specifically. So each one would be posted on the website, on the public portal, would go through the Planning Commission review and back for recommendation and back to you. So it would be additional, two separate and distinct text changes that will go through the process separately, as opposed to one text change that may take initially, 4 to 6 weeks longer, but would only be one text change. But it is entirely up to council which option you choose.
Councilmember Buffkin, hearing that this would be 4 to 6 weeks, are you okay moving this forward as one text change?
It's not a problem from timing standpoint. As you heard, staff is going to stay enforcement while the 1 or 2 text changes are going through the process. The sensitivity with with only doing option 2 is that I think there's certainly more issues and perhaps more complex issues involved in option 2, and so my preference would be to keep option 1 on the table and make it just about play sets. But if it's the will of the council to do one text change and do it all at once, that'd be fine too. I think that adding the other issues I think play sets is pretty straightforward and would be an easy, manageable text change. I think the others are going to be a little more complicated and might slow the play set issue down. But if that's the will of the council, that's how we'll do it.
Councilmember Cox.
Yeah, I support option 1. I'm not at all in support of option 2.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, well, we seem to have Council Melton wanting to move forward with one text change. Number 2, we have Councilmember Buffkin, both changes, but moving forward with option 1 first. Do I have anyone who would like to make a motion or any additional comments? Councilmember Melton and then Buffkin.
Yeah, I was just curious if we were creating more work for ourselves and staff. I will support Councilmember Buffkin's proposal. I also think that would give some time on option 2, maybe for Councilmember Cox to have his concerns voiced or addressed. So let's just do 2 separate text changes, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Mayor, I suppose since we've got different votes here, we probably ought to do this in 2 separate motions. Would that be okay?
Yes, it will be.
Okay, thank you. Then I move to authorize staff to proceed with the option 1 text change.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Melton is seconded. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Second motion, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize staff to proceed with the option 2 text change.
We have a second on that. Councilmember Knight has seconded. All in favor? Opposed? So that was a 7-1 vote with Councilor Cox opposed. Clerk. Okay, next I turn this over to the report and recommendation of the city manager.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have one item on the agenda, and then I have two staffing updates to report. So first, we have Carrie Painter from the Convention and Performing Arts Center Complex, who is going to give us an update on the shuttered venue program.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Carrie Painter, Raleigh Convention and Performing Arts Complex. I am delighted to be here today. It's not often I get to come to Council and just have lots of great news. And so to begin with, we want to let you know that we were awarded the Shuttered Venue Grant. This was a grant that was specifically for companies who produce product on stage and those stage operators. And so we were thrilled to be able to get two of them, one for Red Hat for 1.164 and one for the Duke Energy Performing Arts Center at 2.6. We do have to spend the money by the end of the year, and fingers crossed, I think I will be back in front of you probably by the next meeting with a supplemental grant that we are eligible for, I think. So we want to use the grant in different ways. It's got very broad ways to apply it, and our intent is to use it just to catch up from COVID in some ways, from the personnel and operating costs that we expended. The ice rink at Red Hat, which we're going to touch on in a minute. The Centerplate, our vendor, we're going to pay off some of the money that we use for the vendor, and the Downtown Raleigh Initiative, which was the concerts we produced in the early summer season that you'll remember. And this will create some additional flexibility with the RCC, and I'm going to touch on that next. So we'll leave this point for a minute and then circle back to it. So we're going to move to our favorite, the ice rink. We're delighted to be opening an ice rink this holiday season. It's going to be a great complement with the tree lighting, and we intend to kick it off supplemental to the Christmas parade as well, and it will be in the Red Hat. We put out a bid for an ice rink, and this is more of a turnkey ice rink, so it is just that. It is the rink, the boards, the Zamboni to clean it, the skates, etc. And we were thrilled to have 3 submissions. We received Magic Ice USA for the ice rink installation at a cost of $123,750 per year. And we did bid it out for 3 years with the hope that we can continue this and turn it into a Raleigh legacy. The grant will pay for the first year, and then we will hope to get some sponsorships and other budget money to carry it on for the next years. If we can't, then we understand, but we are going to accept the 3 years with the ability to cancel. And this is where we touched on in the past slide. This will replace some money, the ARPA money that you originally were going to put towards the ice rink. We will use this grant for that and then use that ARPA money to help the RCC recover from COVID. So today we're asking Council to authorize the city manager to execute all the required grant documentation and the agreement, to authorize a budget amendment to budget the funds so that we can spend them, and to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Magic Ice USA for the ice skating rink. I'm here for any questions, if I can help you.
Okay, do we have any questions of Carrie? Okay, well, I just want to say that this is continuation of work that the Downtown Raleigh Alliance initiated with their public realm study. This has been in the Economic Development and Innovation Committee. As we've studied this, we'll have more additional information coming out of Councilmember Melton's committee. But having worked downtown right outside where the ice rink used to be, I can testify that there would be hundreds of people at the rink enjoying themselves, kids, adults, families, you name it. This is a wonderful way to celebrate the holidays, but also bring people back downtown. It's outdoors, it's a safe setting. So I want to commend staff for their work on this grant. Everything we can do to bring folks downtown and reactivate our space is really important at this time. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm going to make the motion to approve. Do I have a second? Councilmember Melton has seconded. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie.
And so as it is very hard to follow behind magic ice, we'll keep it all in context. It's 90 degrees today, so we can let the ice wait until later on in the year. It is truly my pleasure to introduce to our viewing audience, and some of you have already had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Chief Estella Patterson, our new police chief. So far, we've started doing the one-on-ones with each council member, so we're about halfway done. And for those of you who have not had the opportunity just yet, it is coming. But I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce Chief Estella Patterson to our public, and she will be the center of attention when we host our community event. We have yet to set a date on that, trying to allow her to get her wings under her and to get acclimated to the community. But that is up and coming. I hope to be able to announce that date, if not the next meeting, in early October, so that the community will have an opportunity to meet her. So without further ado, our police chief, Estella Patterson.
Good afternoon, everyone, to city manager, to council, and also to the mayor. Thank you so much for your warm welcome and reception to me here in Raleigh. I am super excited to be here in Raleigh. I've been 1 month on the ground now, but I'm very busy, been out and about in the community, as the manager stated. Have had the opportunity to meet some community leaders as well as residents. Very excited about that. Also, too, I did a ride along out in the Southeast District with Councilman Branch. Showed me a lot of exciting places. So Raleigh has a lot to offer. Excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to working with each of you. Just as long as there are no bears and trees and spitting cobras, I think I will be all right here. Thank you all.
Chief, before you disappear on us, you could come back.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to tell you, thank you for providing a little humor first off, but I did want to tell you that I have seen a number of posts of you with members of our community on social media. I just want to commend you for getting out in the community, meeting people, listening. That is a great start. So I really just want to say thank you and commend you for doing that. It will be key.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. And I will continue to do that. That is my platform. That is what I love to do. So you will see me more and more out with the community.
Awesome. Thank you.
And second, we have Assistant City Manager Evan Raleigh, who will make an announcement that is long awaited by many in the community. So Evan, if you will step to the mic.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. Yes, I do believe this is a long-awaited announcement, and I'm excited to be able to be here to formally announce that we have identified a leader for our new Office of Community Engagement. After a very exhaustive, extensive national search, it garnered more than 300 applicants. I think that's a testament to just the draw that the city of Raleigh is and how folks are excited to be able to do this type of work here. But that leader is coming to us from the city of Winston-Salem. Her name is Taisha Hinton. She has been with the city of Winston-Salem for 6 years, but doing a variety of things. Most recently, she was the founding director of that city's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. But she's done a number of things. She started her career as a community organizer in Cleveland. So she's got certainly a lot of experience being out and about, embedded deeply into the community. And I think probably one of the most significant factors here, she just so happens to be a native of Southeast Raleigh. So she is returning home and very excited to do so in this capacity. I think she'd also probably hurt me if I didn't say that she was a very proud graduate of North Carolina A&T State University as well. So she will be joining us towards the end of September. Certainly will provide you all with an opportunity to get to know her. She's very excited. Actually, over the weekend, she was texting me and saying, "Hey, there are a couple of things I see out there. Should I get moving?" I said, "Just hold off just a little bit until you get formally started." But she's really, really excited about this work, to work with you all in carrying out your vision for a reformed model for community engagement for the city.
Thank you, Evan. And so we have been moving in spite of everything else. We have been moving lots of moving parts. We have a posting for strategy and innovation. I know many of you all are excited about that. That posting will go up this week, and we'll have one more posting in about a month, and hopefully we will be settled in and get started back up for our upcoming budget cycle. So just wanted to share that with council and our viewing audience, and that is all that I have today.
Thank you, City Manager. That's great news. I know, as you said, it's been long waited, and I know that it was an extensive search. So I really appreciate all the work done in that, and we cannot wait to have her join our team. So thank you. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the study group on council term salaries and voter engagement and participation. I believe Eric Braun is here to walk us through this.
Might fall through it. Excuse me for that. I'm going to get it. It's just take a second if everybody was there. I know everybody needs some excitement today.
I hope you're okay, Eric.
I am. That happens routinely. So I need to be in the chair. I'm going to try to keep it
Take your time.
And that is a joke.
Take your time, Eric.
Yeah, it will not take an hour. I was just joking about that. Let me make sure I can get to the arrows. It will be off and running. Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. My name is Eric Braun. My address is 3316 Rock Creek Drive, Raleigh 27609. As you know, I'm the chair of the study group that was tasked with looking at how council is elected and compensated. As you recall, I appeared before you on June 15th to present an interim report detailing some of our initial recommendations. As promised, I'm back today to deliver the study group's final report and recommendations. Understanding that my time is limited, I'm going to briefly touch on those initial recommendations. And I'll go through those pretty quickly. But of course, if you have any questions or want me to go into any more detail on those, please feel free to interrupt me, because I'm prepared to go into that a little more, because I know it's the second time you've heard those, so you may have some questions. But I'll spend the bulk of my time on the last two recommendations that we worked on since we were here on June 15th. As a refresher, the study group has 9 members, 10 when you include myself. Had we not returned to virtual setting, all the members were planning on attending today. They're very enthusiastic about our report. As you recall, you appointed our group in November of 2020. We held our first meeting on December 11th and have met a total of 15 times. The specific issues you asked us to look at were council terms, compensation, voter engagement, and the size of council. And as I said, we issued the interim report on the 15th. We had some ground rules that we operated on, but the main guiding principle was that we operated on was the consensus model. So each recommendation that you'll hear today is unanimously supported by the group. And in terms of our methodology, as you recall, the Charlotte, there was a similar group in Charlotte that their city council appointed to do. They looked at a few other things, but they looked at the things we were asked to review as well. And so they had some fresh data. And so we used a lot of their data and then supplemented it with additional data that we gathered ourselves. One of the things I want to point out and really emphasize today is is that the structure of our recommendations, because throughout the process, we attempted to balance the strategic interest and the long-term vision for the city against the local interest and constituent services. To do that effectively, we structured the recommendations as an integrated whole. Because of that, we recommend, when you're considering these, that they be considered collectively. Throughout all of our discussions and considerations, we've come to believe that the whole is actually greater than the sum of the parts in this situation. And together, these recommendations will establish a governing foundation to serve Raleigh well for decades to come. So after our 15 meetings that spanned approximately 35 hours, we've come up with 6 recommendations, and the first 4 you've heard already. We think council should move to 4-year terms. Those terms should be staggered. Elections should be moved to even years. Council should increase total compensation. The city should develop and implement a voter engagement program. And we recommend adding 1 new district council position. So in terms of our first recommendation, with the complexity of the city, 4-year terms will allow council to focus more on strategic issues and governing and less on campaigning and fundraising. Our second recommendation is to stagger the terms so that citizens retain the ability to signal dissatisfaction with council and demand course corrections every 2 years. In terms of how to stagger, we recommend all district councilors run on one side of the cycle, and that the mayor and the at-large councilors run on the other side of the cycle. In terms of total compensation, given the complexity of the city, the demands on councilors have changed dramatically over the last 20 years. With electronic communication and social media becoming ubiquitous, citizens have nearly constant access to city council and often expect frequent attention. After looking at data from North Carolina and from across the country, it's clear that council's compensation is inadequate today, given the size of the city, the budget, and the growth trajectory. So our recommendations are intended to better align total compensation with the demands and obligations that city councilors face today. So just running through kind of where we are today, you can see in the chart, the yellow row is where Raleigh currently stands today in relation to the peer cities we looked at. You can see it's towards the bottom of that list. The same is true with city council compensation. Again, it's at the bottom of towards the bottom of the list at $19,725. I'm not going to go through the methodology, but because that's detailed in the report, and I talked about it last time. But in summary, our recommendation is that the mayor's compensation be increased to $45,911. And if you do that, you can see where you would fall within the peer groups we've talked about. So you can see the mayor's compensation would be in the top 3, or in the 3rd position between Charlotte and Mecklenburg. And the Charlotte compensation there was adopted in the most recent adopted budget for Charlotte. So if you look below that orange row where it says Charlotte current, that was current prior to their adoption of the recent budget. So they went from $45,096 for the mayor to $59,868. We did the same analysis for city councilors, and based on that, we came up with $37,248. And when you look at that relative to the peer cities, you can see that would put Raleigh Council in the 3rd position, again behind Charlotte and Mecklenburg. And you can see where Raleigh was before that. And additionally, if you look to Charlotte, what was their current compensation was $33,915, and they increased that this budget year to $52,444. Our fourth recommendation was that we should move elections to even years. And as you know, the General Assembly adopted a statute that did in fact delayed the next election till November of 2022 and permanently moved elections, the Raleigh elections to even years, sorry. But it's one thing, and based on our analysis, moving the elections to even years will substantially increase voter turnout. There's really no question about that. It's really how much. But we also recognize that high voter turnout doesn't necessarily equate to an informed electorate. And so the committee also believes that enhanced voter engagement is necessary. And that brings us to our fifth recommendation, which is to ensure residents have easy access to information about local elections so they can become more informed voters. The city should develop and implement a comprehensive, nonpartisan voter engagement plan. And within this broad recommendation, we developed specific action items that should be incorporated into such an engagement program. And the first one is that our information that we received from Jerry Cohen and I looked in the city's budgets. Last year's budget, the city spent approximately, I believe it was $840,000 on elections, and for this budget year, they budgeted, or you budgeted, $800,000 for the elections. And from what we understand, the Board of Elections will only charge the city the differential additional cost above and beyond what it would cost to conduct the national elections that they're going to already have to conduct in even years. And so we don't know what the savings will be, but it will be quite substantial. So there should be money available out of that budgeted $800,000 that could be reallocated to this effort. Next, we think that the voter engagement process should be part of the city's DE&I and community engagement strategy. We recommend that council direct the city manager to actually assign responsibility for the voter engagement strategy to a specific department to ensure accountability. We recommend developing and locating a voter resource guide page on a voter resource guide on a prominent landing page within the city's website with appropriate cross-references throughout the city's website and related electronic communications. Next, we recommend creating a distribution process using GovDelivery for nonpartisan voter information tied to deadlines and important dates for local elections. One of the indirect benefits of this kind of effort would be that it would direct more traffic in general to the city's website. We recommend adding voter engagement to the city's social media platforms by creating a Twitter handle for Raleigh voter information. We recommend using GovDelivery and other city communication channels to cross-pollinate social media channels. This is a pretty important one that the group really felt strongly about. The city should develop and distribute a voter guide modeled on the statewide judicial races that used to be sent out to all voters by mail. They're no longer doing that. I'm not sure what the history is, but the statute laid out what the content should be, and our view was that it passed muster for for that process, and so it should be appropriate for local elections as well. That voter guide should be distributed through the U.S. Postal Service and other appropriate electronic channels. The city should promote and continue free bus service on Election Day. I know they voted to keep buses free for, I forgot what was just announced, but if it doesn't remain free, we recommend making sure it's free for Election Day. And then we would like to see the city enhance the interactive council district map with information like polling places and other information tied to voter addresses. And right now, to be frank, that interactive map is kind of buried at the bottom of the page below council information. And so we think if the city develops a specific voter information page within the city's website, that should be put in a more prominent place. We also think the city's newsletter should be used to provide voter information to residents. I know the utility department has a newsletter, and the Parks and Rec, and I'm not sure of the other ones, but we think those newsletters could also incorporate voter information. And those newsletters are also important because they should increase the chances of reaching residents that lack reliable internet service. And then one of the more, potentially more complex matters we discussed was using the Raleigh community TV to televise candidate forums and to otherwise inform citizens about elections. And we know that can be, that's a sensitive issue because we understand the city cannot be in a position, whether certainly in reality, but even in perception, that it somehow is favoring certain candidates over others. And so we all agree that if there's a way to do it, televising candidate forums would be an effective use of community TV, but it certainly can also be used to provide information about the elections. Again, and that way to communicate with people also might get to people that don't have internet access. And our final action item within this recommendation is to work on a public service announcement campaign in coordination with community groups and local businesses to encourage citizens to register to vote. And so those are our kind of action items within the broad recommendation of developing and implementing a voter engagement program. And then our last recommendation is one we spent more time discussing, I think, than any of the others, because we started out with a pretty divergent set of opinions. Several members favored adding more district members because they felt it would focus attention on more local issues and constituent service, while others felt that adding at-large members would help keep the city focused on strategic, longer-term issues and also thereby reducing the possibility of more divisiveness. But after exploring the pros and cons of the various options in the context of our other recommendations, we determined that adding a district representative to bring council to 9 members was the best approach. And there were several factors that influenced this recommendation. First, there's really no clear trend regarding city council size in tier cities in North Carolina or nationally for that matter. An odd number of councilors avoids deadlocks and we think facilitates more efficient policy development. A 9-member council is still manageable and will not impose an unreasonable burden on the city manager. This may be an overlooked point, but to varying degrees, I think council can understand that each city council requires some amount of time and attention from the city management team. The cumulative time commitment from adding additional council seats makes managing the city more challenging and likely less efficient. The study group was sensitive to this fact in determining that a 9-member council was most appropriate. In terms of the peer cities we studied, a 9-member council falls squarely between the average size of North Carolina peer cities at 7.9 council members and the average size of the national council manager peer cities that we looked at 10.4 members. And finally, because elections are less expensive for district council races than at-large races, adding a district seat is more likely to attract diverse, non-traditional candidates. So with that, that completes the study group's recommendations. But I want to just emphasize a point I made earlier. The study group worked hard to craft these recommendations so they are interdependent and ensure that ensure the best outcome for future generations. So when you're looking at these, please consider them as an integrated whole rather than as a set of individual recommendations, because doing otherwise really risks diminishing the potential benefits to the city. And with that final point, I'm happy to answer any questions and certainly want to let you know that we are available, and I think the rest of the study group would be available going forward as you consider these recommendations to answer questions or kind of to provide more context to how we got where we ended up.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? Mayor Pro Tem Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brown, I think there is a lot here, and I really appreciate that the group did so much work to get to a unanimous recommendation, and I weigh that very heavily. I think it speaks loudly to the diverse group coming to some common agreement and figuring out what's best for our city. So thank you for that. I do have one question about your final point about the district councilors have a lower financial barrier to entry, so more likely to attract a diverse, non-traditional candidates. I'm thinking about Raleigh City Council's history with this and the lack of diversity, frankly, outside of District C, outside of Southeast Raleigh that we've seen in our candidates. And I'm comparing that to how Wake County and the city of Durham run their elections, where they are represented by wards or districts, but run city or county-wide. And I will own that I need to go back and look at your notes and your minutes from the very long, extensive conversations you've had on this point, but I'm wondering if there was some conversation around what our kind of sister areas, our sister elected officials do, and comparing that with Raleigh, and specifically around this point about trying to get a more diverse council.
Well, we did have some discussion about that, and the one point that I remember, and I am not versed in the law related to voting rights and things like that, but I will tell you that one of the issues that came up that I was aware of is Norfolk, Virginia used to have that situation where they had representatives ran citywide, but they represented a specific district, and they were actually sued and lost because it resulted in having less minority representation. And Virginia Beach is currently being sued for that same specific issue. And so I know that some other places do it here in North Carolina. I don't know what the law is, but we had some discussion, and it's not reflected in our recommendations because we felt like obviously it's your responsibility and your to redraw districts and to balance them. And depending on the criteria you use, there's certainly an opportunity to potentially craft districts that may be more likely than not to result in more minority representation. Now, I'm getting beyond my capacity in terms of what you all are allowed to do in terms of redistricting and what the rules are for that. But we did have some general discussion about it, and our this is where we came down, thinking that there was a better opportunity. And I would say, I forgot to mention one other thing. One of our other rationales for increasing compensation was also to, we thought that would more likely increase the opportunity for a more diverse candidate pool as well. And so those were two kind of key areas: increasing the compensation and adding a district versus an at-large, because we felt those two were more likely to result in diverse, non-traditional candidates being elected to council. So sorry for the long-winded, and I don't know if I made the city attorney squirm on anything I said, but I will qualify that I'm not versed in the law, as it relates to these issues.
Thank you. Councilmember Cox.
Yes, I was wondering if the committee looked at primary versus plurality in terms of even year elections, and if you considered the pros and cons of using a primary versus plurality, because if we go to plurality in even years, it's quite likely we will often have elections where the winner does not win more than 50% of the vote.
I recall some conversations about that, but I think the general position of the group was to move directly to the even elections and not create a situation, not do a primary and then a general election. But I don't specifically recall the discussion points on that. But all the minutes of our meetings are attached to the report, and of course, all of our meetings were televised. Because of this situation, we were in Zoom, and so they're all available on the city's YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Knight, you had your hand raised.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Braun and the rest of the committee for as Councilor Stewart said, all the hard work that they have put in. And this has been a long time coming. And I also appreciate this council, this mayor being willing to look at these issues, because as Mr. Braun and the committee have shown, our structure has not changed in a long time, while the city has certainly changed a lot. And we need to do our best now with this good feedback to keep up with the change of our city. And I think this is an important piece of that. And I look forward to a public process to hear from the public more about how they feel about this feedback and these recommendations in particular. Just so make sure it's clear, the recommendations that y'all have put forward, those can be made by the council and the city without any other changes in law, state or federal or otherwise. Is that correct?
You actually have, there are technically three kind of processes that this can be done under. Well, one, I'll take that back. Compensation is technically, you establish your compensation every year through the budget ordinance. The one difference is in terms of the expense allowances that we referenced. I believe there's a specific ordinance that sets those, but compensation is within it's not a charter change, so that's all within your legislative capacity. You can do pretty much whatever you want with compensation. The other issues that we looked at are technically charter changes. And the General Assembly has established, I think they've recognized that cities and towns are going to evolve over time. And so they've laid this menu of options that cities have. So the first way that you can make these changes is simply to have a public hearing, and take as much public engagement as you want. And then you can adopt an ordinance that makes these other changes. Then there's an option that you can hold a referendum so the people can vote on this, on these, or some of them, whichever you chose. And then there's a third option where if council chooses to move forward through the ordinance process without a referendum, there's a provision in the state statute that allows citizens, and we're kind of familiar with this process right now, citizens can, and the statute says that it's 5,000 residents or 5%, whichever is less. So in the city situation, a community group can gather 5,000 signatures and force these matters to be put on the ballot as a referendum. And so, so that's really three ways that it can happen. But you're not obligated to put it to a vote of the people. The General Assembly has given cities the option to adopt these through an ordinance process and procedure.
Okay, thank you.
I hope I stated that correct.
So that means we could package these recommendations together and take them through a public process together, I guess, for efficiency purposes, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll just flag, I'm interested in term limits, further discussion on term limits. And from what I understand, that would take a state law change, if I'm not mistaken, but just want to flag that for folks, that may be a different process or not one at all, but I'm interested in that as well for city council. Thanks again for all y'all's work, and look forward to working with you all as we go through this process.
Well, thank you. If I could I take one more minute for a couple of thank yous, if you don't mind, unless there are other questions. But I just want to say that with all the divisiveness that we've seen locally and across the state and nationally, it's really been an honor and a true pleasure to work with the folks of this study group. We were very diverse, but we were able to discuss and debate issues despite some of us having very strong opinions. I can't say enough about how positive this really was for me, and I hope the other members of the study group. Every member was present and dedicated to developing the recommendations and in a way that best served the city. I want to say thanks to our chair, Justin Sutton. He was always available to offer advice and guidance. The same is true for the Secretary, Harvey Schmidt. His advice was spot on, and he delivered meeting minutes, usually within a few hours of the conclusions of our meeting. And of course, city staff, in particular, Robin, Janie, and Brandon in the city attorney's office, they've been invaluable help to us. Stacy Lundy, she's got the patience of a saint and kept us working effectively in the virtual world. She made sure that our meetings were recorded and posted on the city's YouTube channel. Sarah Baker answered numerous questions and helped coordinate our research early in the process. Catherine Presley helped coordinate our efforts and made sure things were posted to board docs. Jerry Cohen made himself available to nearly every meeting to answer questions and provide insight. And Lou Bonapane has been nothing but helpful and patient with me throughout the process. And then last but not least, I really want to thank council for appointing the study group. I think it's an important issue, and I look forward to working with you all as you consider these going forward. So thank you very much.
Eric, I just want to say thank you to you and the committee. You did a tremendous amount of research and outreach, and I just want to say thank you for all the work you put into this, but also thank you for what you said earlier. Everybody coming together, despite differences of opinion, work together to get to unanimous decisions shows and proves that it can be done, that you can agree, but you can also come together in agreement. So thank you for demonstrating that and bringing this forward. City Manager, I'm going to make a suggestion. I think there's some consensus to have a work session on this item but not a typical work session. This would also allow for public comment. And I think there's going to have to be some more education on this. So work session would be a good way to do that. So I don't know if we need, Robin, a motion and vote on that.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. That would be a good way to know who all is in support of that.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to send this to public hearing with public comment as a first step in the process. And looking at this, I think it would also be helpful to have a member, like either Eric or somebody else from the committee at this work session to answer questions. So that's my motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Melton. Councilmember Cox.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about exactly what we're voting on here. Are we talking about sending this study recommendations, these study recommendations to a work session? We're not actually drafting anything, are we?
I think the motion is pretty clear, sending these recommendations to a work session for discussion and also public comment as a first step in this process.
Yeah, well, I'd like to add to this that we also have some discussion about how we're going to do public engagement regarding these matters. I don't think one work
that will
session.
be part of the work session discussion.
Okay, as long as it is, then you have my support.
Okay. All right. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. This might be something that our new public community engagement person can kind of sink their teeth into and maybe provide some recommendations on how we move forward as well.
Absolutely. I was
That
thinking
could be
the same
part of
thing.
the whole, yeah. That could be part of the whole work session.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, next we have the report and recommendation of the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. David Bender with Parks and Rec, also the project manager for the Trenton Road Connector Project. What I want to do is give you a very brief overview of where we are in terms of the design and give you kind of an idea of where the project is, what kind of some of the ideas and concepts that we came up with. This is a project map. You can see the location, Trenton Road, which is just east of Umstead State Park along I-40, across from near SAS, and you can see Meredith College and Museum of Art right in the center. This, what you see, is a project area map. You can see Trenton Road is within the red border. That is the location of the proposed improvements. The blue arrows, as you see, are 3 high visibility pedestrian crossings, which we are proposing at Windy Woods Drive, Trinity Woods, and Silent Stream Court, as well as on Manor Brook Road. I also want to note here on the purple line to the lower left is the future Triangle Bikeway, which will be tying into this improvement. So the picture you see here is a rendering of what we're proposing. To the right, there is a 10-foot paved asphalt trail surface. There is an 18-inch by 6-inch cast-in-place concrete median that we are proposing. And a special note I want to show is the shared path logo, which we are proposing to put along this. Special note, this is something that we are going to be installing on Ratchford Road for the 106 Structure 106 project. Important note also is that Trenton Road is a North Carolina DOT maintained road.
project coordination throughout this whole process, NCDOT has been a partner in this effort from the beginning. We have also been coordinating with the Postal Service as well as solid waste provider along Trenton Road to ensure that we are accommodating their needs as well as the property owners. And also with the property owners, we've been coordinating, collaborating with them from the very beginning. And we continue to meet and collaborate with them throughout this design process. And most importantly, all of our partners with the city, stormwater, transportation, engineering services. Apologize if I leave you off, but again, we continue to have successful and really good collaboration with all departments through all of our Greenway projects. Again, throughout this process, public comments that we have addressed, we just recently did meet with NCDOT, and they have given us some provisional approvals to several of these comments that we've received from the public, and I'm only going to show you some of the key issues that have come up. We've agreed to reduce the white vertical bollards that we were proposing originally along the median. We are going to be recommending that they are located at the ends at each drive. DOT is fine with tinting the median concrete. They agree with the high visibility pedestrian crossing, and also they support reducing the speed from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles throughout the length of Trenton Road. Again, these are provisional approvals by NCDOT. Further work will need to be done in coordinating these improvements with NCDOT as we go through the final design process. The project schedule, with the action today by council, we are in the process of coordinating some on-site meetings with impacted property owners. We're looking at a meeting in October to meet on site with those property owners to go over some vegetation, some fencing, and just other privacy issues which they have brought up that they've expressed interest and concern in wanting to meet with the design team. So we're in the process of coordinating that with them. We hope to have final design permitting as well as bidding this project in the fall, start construction in early 22, and finally to have this project completed by summer of 2022. That concludes my presentation, and I'm willing to any questions that the board may have.
Councilmember Fort, then Councilmember Cox.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I think this is in my district, and I've heard from quite a few folks, mostly in support, but there have been a couple questions raised by some of the neighbors, and I know you're planning to have a meeting with them. Will you be discussing, traffic calming and some of these other issues? Those are some of the issues they've raised with me, in addition to, I know you mentioned fencing and, some of the other property issues, but will those be some of the items that you'll address during the public meeting or your meeting and conversation with the neighbors?
I'm sorry, I must have missed the question that you have. What are we going to be meeting with the property owners on?
No, just trying to get a good sense of what some of the items you're going to be prepared to address when you have that conversation with them. Like some of the neighbors have raised the issue of needing traffic calming measures and some other stuff in the neighborhood. So just trying to make sure you're aware of some of the concerns that they've raised, and you'll be prepared to address those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working with property owners from the beginning. We have a long list of concerns and issues that the property owners have been expressing and sharing with us. And so we'll be talking about existing vegetation that's located within the right-of-way, potential impacts to critical root growth on vegetation located outside of our limits of disturbance, possible impacts to those, the location of the ditch line to the property owner's line. All those are elements that we plan to have open up and discuss with the property owners.
Yeah, but they've raised issues about traffic calming and some other stuff. And so I'm just trying to make sure you're going to have a comprehensive conversation in addition to the, environmental issues, but there's some other pressing issues that they've been talking to us about for a while. So just kind of want to make sure those things are included.
Absolutely. Well, those are all issues that they brought up with us that we will meet and continue to talk and coordinate and collaborate with the property owners on.
Thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Cox, I'm sorry.
Yes, I was wondering how this bike trail relates to the one that is planned through Umstead Park along Crabtree Creek. Is this to supplement that trail?
On Crabtree Creek, on Reedy Creek Road,
Well,
the
I
Crabtree
understand
West
that.
project
Yeah.
that connects from Crabtree to Umstead State Park. That's the one you're talking about?
Well, I don't know the exact name, but I know I have seen maps that show a trail that runs, and it's controversial because it would run between the existing quarry and the quarry that's been proposed next to Umstead State Park.
Right. That's the Crabtree West project that will be connecting the current terminus, the Crabtree Creek Trail, to Umstead Park. This will contribute to that regional connectivity that trail is going to provide, connecting all the way from Noose River Trail, Anderson Point to Umstead Park, and through Umstead Park to Reedy Creek Trail, as well as to Trenton Road, and then in the future to the I-40 bikeway. So this is a critical link strategically in terms of that connectivity.
Okay, so this supplements that trail and is not a substitute for that trail, to the best of your knowledge.
It's gonna be a supplement really to the whole region in terms of trails that are located in the area. So it's not just Crabtree Creek Trail, but it's going to provide connectivity throughout the region. So it provides a really successful strategic improvement for the bikeways.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, do we have Councilmember Buffkin?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm really excited to see this project move forward. I think Mr. Bender hit the nail on the head right there at the end. This is about regional connectivity, and there was mention of Structure 106, the Ratchford Drive project. I got to ride it this weekend and walk it this weekend. It looks fabulous, very exciting. Another reminder that a small link in the trail that is either out of service or in service can contribute to connectivity across the city or not. So this is a key link, a critical part of our Greenway network, and I'm really excited to see the project move forward and look forward to supporting its approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we need to, somebody needs to make a motion then to authorize staff to proceed with the final design. Councilmember Fort?
That would be my motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Councilmember Knight has seconded. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, clerk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the Biophilic Cities Network membership. And I guess Raleigh's ready, but I just need to learn to pronounce it first, then we'll really be ready. Thank you, Scott.
Good afternoon, Mayor Baldwin and members of City Council. I'm before you today to present the opportunity for the City of Raleigh to join the Biophilic Cities Network. Get the keyboard to work here. Dr. E.O. Wilson expounded on the concept of biophilia, as one of his statements here. His seminal work on the relationship between mankind and nature spawned rich veins of research documenting the positive impacts of nature on our lives. The current pandemic underscores the value of being in nature, as evidenced by the tremendous increase in visitation to parks, open spaces, and trails, both nationally and here in Raleigh. This critical green infrastructure provides a calming respite to reduce the stresses and strains we all are facing. Biophilic cities are those communities that, by intent, strive to connect their citizens to nature through dedicated planning, creative programming, and committed operations and management. Here's the list of current Biophilic City Network members. In September of 2019, Dr. Timothy Beatley, with the Biophilic Cities Network housed at the University of Virginia, delivered a seminar at Dorothea Dix Park about biophilic cities. There were council members present at that seminar, and in October of 2019, former council member Mendel requested the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board, as well as the Environmental Advisory Board, to make a recommendation to full council whether Raleigh should seek to qualify as a biophilic city. The Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Subcommittee of the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board reviewed the requirements for joining the Biophilic Cities Network. The committee evaluated the current City of Raleigh efforts in this area. They looked at the work performed by cities' departments, Office of Sustainability, Engineering Services, Stormwater Division, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department, Planning and Development, and the Raleigh Water Environmental Services Division. They assessed their findings against the definition of a biophilic city, and the committee recommended the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board that Raleigh is ready to join the Biophilic Cities Network. The recommendation was shared with the Environmental Advisory Board and the Stormwater Management Advisory Committee. Both boards are supportive of that effort. Here are the steps to join the Biophilic Cities Network. Staff from the Office of Sustainability, Stormwater Division, and Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resource Department will work together to finalize the application if approved. I would like at this time to introduce Marcia Presnell-Jeanette, who's chair of the Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Committee, representing the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board.
Thank you, Scott. Members of the City Council, it is my honor to address this issue with you. The Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board wholeheartedly supports the City of Raleigh joining the Biophilic Cities Network. The Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Committee of the Parks Board has met many months discussing the benefits and process of applying for this recognition, as Scott Payne mentioned. The Environmental Advisory Board and Stormwater Management Advisory Commission have contributed to the study and joined the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board in this recommendation. We anticipate Raleigh being the first city in North Carolina to earn this designation. The Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board respectfully asks the City Council to approve the City of Raleigh moving forward in the application to join the Biophilic Cities Network. Thank you.
Are there any questions at this time?
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion? Councilmember Buffkin.
Thank you, Mayor, and Mr. Payne. Marcia, thanks for being with us today. I remember this conversation starting when I was still a member of the City Parks Board, and glad to see the fruits of your work coming to us today, and congratulate you on your efforts. This is a big, important step for the city and well-earned recognition. So I move to adopt the resolution and authorize staff to complete the membership process for the Biophilic Cities program.
Councilmember Branch has seconded that. All in favor? Okay, no one is opposed. Clerk, that was unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the report and recommendation of Raleigh Sister Cities. This would be a memorandum of understanding with Gibraltar. And we have Troy Burton and Cody Charlin here to speak to us today.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Troy Burton. I'm staff support for Historic Resources and Museum Program within Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources. One of the many partners that we are honored to work with through the course of our work are the Raleigh Sister Cities. And this afternoon, we have with us Cody Charland, the president of the Raleigh Sister Cities, as well as Mary Claire Freeman, who is representing committee chair for Gibraltar. With that, I'll introduce Cody Charland.
Good afternoon, Council and Mayor. Cody Charland with Raleigh Sister Cities. The hope for today is that we give you an overview of what we've been doing over the past 18 months, as well as looking for your approval for the agreement with Gibraltar. So we'll move ahead to the next slide. Over the last year, we've had to pivot and do things as virtually and safely as possible. Some of you have been involved with some of our events with our international partners. We have started a process with Gibraltar here that Councilmember Melton was involved with last fall in talking with Minister Vijay Dariyani from Gibraltar, as well as Marianne Baldwin met with the Oberbürgermeister Klaus Madsen of Rostock. He is the mayor there, and did a virtual event with the libraries here and in Rostock. We've also partnered with the NC Symphony on a few events, as well as the Chamber here in Raleigh and International Focus to provide some educational and awareness events celebrating international diplomacy and culture as well. And one of our founders of Raleigh Sister Cities, Gretchen Chapman, you'll see her in the corner, she has transitioned from the leadership of Compiègne into retirement, and we have celebrated her as well, and she has given her role to Kara Gentile, someone that she has helped develop over the past few years as new ambassador for Compiègne. One of our big projects over the last year was develop a strategic plan as well, and a lot of the details were in the report that we provided. We wanted to have some concrete direction during this kind of dynamic time, and so we developed these 5 objectives that you see here, as well as revising our mission statement and creating a new vision and values. Everything focused around this concept of global citizenship. We saw the events over the last year, the pandemic, January 6th, and a lot of the events that were affecting our partners as one to say that we wanted to bring everyone together under a cultural lens and with awareness and humanity and humility. So that global citizenship aspect is one of the most important aspects of what we're doing and trying to develop here and abroad. So over the next few years, our strategic plan goes through 2024, and these are some of the main issues that we want to tackle going forward with our work within Raleigh and abroad. Really, we want to be able, with this energizing sister city relationships, be able to rejuvenate some of the partnerships that we've had over a few decades at this point. And part of that is the effort today to start with Gibraltar. We want to be able to use that relationship to spur on some of the existing and some of the potential relationships that we have to say, look what's being done with our partners over in Gibraltar. We'd like to do the same. And so we want to be able to bring those under an umbrella of precedent and success. Next, we have an annual meeting coming up in June 1st next year, and that's what we look to invite council to be a part of as well. So now I think what I'll do is be glad to take some of your questions, and I've also got Mary Claire Freeman here to help with any specifics on the Gibraltar relationship as we look to get your approval on the agreement.
Okay, if we could take down the presentation, the way I can see everybody. Thank you. Councilmember Cox has a question.
I was wondering if you could summarize how you decide which cities should be sister cities.
Sure. I think it's a mutual agreement first and foremost. One of the reasons I think Gibraltar has looked to us as an example for that agreement is what's happened with Brexit. I think there's a bit of bystander feeling that they, as an overseas territory of the UK, were looking for stability and their international standing. And, you know, this is a benefit of Raleigh being in such a strong place that they were able to have some sovereignty over their international affairs, whereas their external sovereignty is totally dictated and their internal processes in government are autonomous from the UK. But I think that was their effort, and we are their first sister city to look and see if we can get some international standing and diplomacy going on their behalf. As far as the preceding relationships, I think there's always been a connection, whether it be natural or whether it be some type of intentional relationship. I know with the first whole sister city relationship, Ed Walters just happened to be visiting there, and I think developed it through the council to be our first sister city. So it always seems there's this international, this individual component to it that has this international stage. But so far, each of our sister city relationships have started very differently. Councilmember Melton.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to commend Cody and the Sister Cities team. They have been incredibly active and energetic over the past 18 months to 2 years since this idea to sort of, and you see it in their slides, I don't want to say rebrand, but rethink, recultivate, and re-energize the Sister City relationship. It's a really unique opportunity, and they do things that I wasn't even aware of, like a brewery here in Raleigh partnered with a brewery in one of the sister cities, and both made a batch of beer and they were selling it. It's an educational aspect, a cultural aspect, but I also think, especially with Gibraltar, there's a lot of synergy around education and innovation as well. And having met with some of the Gibraltar elected officials, they have a real big focus on sustainability, education, and it aligns really well with the triangle. And so that's like a job recruitment opportunity. That is a cultural sharing opportunity. And I'm excited about the possibility of being sister cities with Gibraltar. One, because I know they're sending a delegation here, and when COVID restrictions lift, I may just find myself over in Gibraltar. If you wonder why, look up where they are and what their culture and environment looks like, and that sounds like a good time to me. But so at the appropriate time, I would, I guess, make the motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Gibraltar.
Any other questions? Also to mention, Councilmember Melton, the relationship with NC State University. I think that is very strong too, and shows commitment to the education innovation piece. So I'm with you on that, and I agree that Sister Cities has been doing some really good and fun work. So thank you. So we don't have any additional questions. Councilmember Melton, would you like to make that motion, please?
Yes, I move that we authorize staff to execute the memorandum of understanding with Gibraltar. Did I do that correctly?
Approve the affiliation subject to precedent and protocol of the Sister City International.
So moved.
Who would like to second? Councilmember Buffkin has seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Cody, for your good work. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I may, I want to point out Mary Claire Freeman. She's been amazing in this and so dedicated to getting this relationship started. And Troy Burton, too. Both deserve statues someday in the city of Raleigh. But I want to say thank you before we leave you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the report. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say quickly thank you to all of you, because this means a lot to me and to our team in Gibraltar. We've been working on this for almost 2 years, so this is really amazing. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Good work. Okay, now we have the report and recommendation of the Economic Development and Innovation Committee. Councilmember Melton.
Thanks. I'm going to start by announcing our next meeting so I don't forget. We are going to have a special council meeting next Tuesday, so that's September 14th, before our work session. So our meeting will be virtual at 3 p.m. And we are going to take up at that meeting some items related to the public realm study. So I want to get that out first. Second, we have a couple recommendations. The first relates to the last piece of our community-centered economic development strategic small business investment. We have had this issue in committee for about a year. We have, I guess, broken it off in chunks. We already recommended out the farmers markets and city parks. We recommended out looking at mobile retail. We recommended out the accessory commercial units. The last piece related to corner stores. We've had a lot of good discussion in committee, and the committee has unanimously recommended that City Council authorize staff to draft a text change which would allow corner stores in areas zoned for residential use beginning with residential 4, R4. The proposal should address, among other things, attached and/or standalone structures and locations on the street corners and/or mid-block. The text change should come back to the full council prior to referral to the Planning Commission. So to be clear, today would authorize staff to research and draft. It will come back to council for us to consider whether we send it into Planning Commission, and once it goes out into the public, it will have multiple public touch points at Planning Commission, text change portal, and then back to council for a public hearing. So that is the motion.
Councilmember Cox? Is that a second?
No, I had questions about this. Other than just, specifying things like mid-block or corner. I mean, what are things that staff is going to consider? Like, for example, what's being sold? I mean, are they going to be selling alcoholic beverages? Are they going to be selling tobacco products or vape products? What are the setbacks that should be incorporated into such a text change? I'd like to see all these things examined.
Yes, I agree. And we had those discussions at committee, and I believe it is the intent for that all of that will be looked at. For whatever reason, staff asked us to include in the motion those specific ones I called out. But I also see Councilmember Branch with his hand up.
Yep.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'm going to second the motion the same way I did in the committee meeting. I do have some concerns. Some of those are the items that Councilman Cox brought up here that I brought up in our meeting. But also knowing how limited on what we can authorize a store to sell. With a lot of concerns and things that have troubled many parts of my neighborhood, I was willing to authorize the text change, but as I said at the meeting, that does not mean I will support the final outcome, but at least we can get some information and go forward from there. So I do second the motion.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilmember Fort?
I kind of echo the sentiments of Councilmember Branch and Councilmember Cox, just knowing in, certain areas of District D, we're already dealing with challenges of, nuisances as relates to time of operations for some facilities and some other stuff. So I certainly would want staff to look at, time of operation and some other things as relates to being in, close proximity to some of these residences.
Mm-hmm. That was all part of the discussion in committee. And just so everybody understands too, the goal really is to bring healthy foods into neighborhoods. But we all know the challenges that we've had with some of these stores that have opened. So that is staff's charge. They have done some really great research, what other communities are doing to encourage this. So I think they've heard us loud and clear, both in committee and today. So when they expand this, they'll be looking at those issues as well. So thank you. Councilmember Cox.
Relating to healthy choices, I will forward to staff and the rest of council a publication in Public Health Nutrition published in 2014 that looked at 192 corner stores in Philadelphia. And what the study did was they actually surveyed what people purchased in Philadelphia over a period of time. They surveyed over 9,000 shoppers and surveyed more than 22,000 products that were purchased. And so one of the concerns I have, which is highlighted in the study, is that most of the items purchased were not healthy choices. The top purchases were regular soda, chips, candy, pastry, and ice cream. Those were the top choices. And I hope that staff will take a look at this in drafting whatever recommendation they bring forward.
Okay.
Call the question, I think.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, clerk, that is unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, we got a couple more. The next 2 or 3 things relate to the public realm study. The first one is the committee recommends that the city council extend the existing emergency outdoor seating regulations to December 31st, 2021, as well as adopt an ordinance amending the fee schedule to retain the current $0 fee through June 30th, 2022. So that's the recommendation. We have to vote on the recommendation first. If the recommendation passes, then I have an ordinance that we have to vote on. So that is the recommendation that I'm making. The motion.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Buffkin, is that a second or a question?
No, ma'am, that's a question.
Okay, please.
You want to take a second first?
Mayor Pro Tem Stewart has seconded, so yes, but please proceed.
Oh, so I think probably this is a question best for staff, but Mr. Melton, if you want to field it, feel welcome. I'd like some more context around the no charge fee and whether we envision this being a permanent thing, or are we going to extend it every 6 or 8 months? I understand generally there's some work involved in setting these things up and closing streets and whatnot. I don't really have a sense of how intensive that work is, but I think I'm correct in my understanding that fees are designed to cover our costs. So if the fee is 0, we're spending money and not getting reimbursed for it. So can I get a little help with that issue?
I'm happy for staff to take care of that. I would also just point out, just for context, we had, as a council, looked at making some of these outdoor spaces permanent. And so what we had in committee was, what text changes can we recommend to keep some of these outdoor spaces permanent? Best practices we learned from COVID. Thinking that we were exiting from COVID this summer. What we have unfortunately seen is that we are still very much in this pandemic, and until it becomes endemic, we wanted to keep the current emergency in place was the recommendation, while also continuing our work for how to use our public spaces after COVID. So that was, instead of making a recommendation today about the permanent changes, the recommendation, unfortunately, because of Delta, is to keep the emergency in place through the end of the year. It was set to expire in October. So that's the context, but I'm happy for staff to jump in about the fees and all that stuff.
Councilmember Cox.
Yes, I'm looking at the report that we got in May, and it looks like our sales tax revenue is actually doing quite well. So I'm a little confused as to, the motivation for providing this relief would assume that businesses are not doing well, but we're actually doing better than last year by the looks of it. We're fiscal year Q3 year to date 23.4. We're looking at fiscal year 20 of 28.5. I'd like to get more information from staff because I think we're actually doing quite well financially.
I don't think this applies to us so much, Councilmember Cox, as it does to restaurants and retail, especially in our downtown area. People have not returned to the office due to Delta. There are many restaurants that owe 3 to 6 to 9 months back rent. They're struggling, and this is a way to help them survive. So that is the reason for this request. It's part of the public realm study that was done by the Downtown Raleigh Alliance. And it's
I would like to see more data, I guess, before I vote on this.
Well, we've already had a review from Downtown Raleigh Alliance on this.
I understand. I mean, I'd like to see a more thorough review of the sales tax revenues for food and beverage. And because the data I have suggests that we're actually doing quite well.
I don't know if I'm still doing my report or not. Was there a second on the motion? I'm trying to figure out where we are procedurally.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Stewart has seconded.
Okay. The only other thing I would point out, because it'd be remiss if I don't say anything, agree with this idea that restaurants are doing just fine. They don't need help. We're still in the middle of the pandemic. And if folks are doing okay, it may be because we haven't put this emergency stuff in place. And if we don't continue it, then they may not be doing okay. And so happy to continue the discussion. I know there's been a motion and second, ready to call for a vote too, if we're ready for it.
Councilmember Buffkin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd still like to hear from the staff on my question. Mr. Melton provided some helpful context on the policy side, but if staff could just kind of give me an idea of, what the thinking is about how expensive this work is and what the permanent or longer term arrangement, that'd be really helpful to me.
Is there somebody from staff who can address this question?
So I will address it, Mayor. And I see Evan Raleigh step into the mic. So Evan, you can come in after I kind of kick it off. I would say we have a cost recovery model in place for our permitting and programs. However, it is not a true 100% recovery model in that all of the events, festivals, activities that we put on, we never recover all of the staff costs that we have embedded in putting on those events. The trade-off for that is it is part of quality of life, some of the amenities that we afford our visitors as well as our residents here in the city. So that is a portion of how we look at the fines and fees and permitting of all of the activities and events that we sponsor or co-sponsor or allow to take place in the city. There are a whole lot of parts around to answer Councilmember Cox's question about the finances. We do have an upcoming work session on November the 9th that sort of kind of outlines where we are at the end of the closeout of the current or the most previous fiscal year. And that should give you a better understanding and picture of where we, the city, are in the way of finances. And so I hope that's helpful because there were several questions that came apart as that conversation. So Evan, if you want to add to that, please feel free.
I think the city manager probably covered that perfectly. I don't know that I have anything else to add to that.
One thing I would add that came out during the meetings is, I think there's a perception that yes, our sales tax is back, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's from certain businesses. That can be from retail shops. We know a lot of people spent money on new furniture, jewelry, whatnot during the pandemic. Some of those businesses did really well. The ones who suffered were really the restaurants and small independent retailers. And that's really what this is meant to help. Also, the distribution of sales tax. Some areas have done quite well. I would mention downtown South, North Hills is possibilities, whereas the Fayetteville Street district has not. So there's different considerations in terms of who has done well and who needs help right now.
So in addition to that, Mayor, at the work session next Tuesday, we will be able to talk a little bit about the American Rescue Act money and some of the initiatives that will be funded out of that money to be able to help with hospitality and vibrancy all throughout the city, primarily focused on downtown, but also looking at other areas throughout the city who are struggling and who have not recovered and come back into operations as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilmember Cox.
I guess I'm unclear about are these temporary measures? And if so, how temporary? I think this was something that Councilmember Buffkin asked, and I don't recall actually hearing an answer to that.
It's
to the end of the year.
To the end of the year.
To the end of the year, and then the fee is to the end of the fiscal year.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to call the question now. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Votes unanimous, clerk.
All right, so now I have the ordinance we have to adopt. City Manager, do I have to read this entire ordinance? Okay, I move to adopt the ordinance contained in the agenda backup material to amend the City of Raleigh fee schedule, to amend the fee for outdoor dining permits, and to extend the relaxation of certain rules governing business activity in city right-of-ways.
Mayor Pro Tem Stewart has seconded that. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, not done yet. The committee further recommends that the city council authorize staff to explore funding options for the purchase and installation of a large-scale LED screen and bring back recommendations to the full council at the September 14th, 2021 work session. That is my motion. For context, I will state that this was one of the public realm study recommendations, along with like the pop-up stuff like the soccer pitch and stuff like that. And so we are taking their public realm study in pieces. So this is one of the pieces we've moved out. So that is my motion.
Okay, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. Councilmember Buffkin, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just about timing. So is this fits in with the ARPA discussion? Or is this in addition, separate from?
This is separate.
That we're planning to have at the work session on the 14th.
This is separate.
Okay. I guess I'm wondering if that's the right time to talk about it. I mean, I got no problem with the idea, but.
If you look at the motion, Councilmember Buffkin, we're just saying that they can look at this. We're authorizing staff. It will take 6 months to a year to actually purchase this. So that was the, I think what Mr. Raleigh told us at that last meeting. So these LED screens take a long time to purchase. There's a backlog, whatnot. And if Mr. Raleigh is there, correct me if I misheard that or I'm wrong about that.
Mayor, and I will also add that, to be clear, the motion is to authorize staff to explore a funding option. So they would have to come back to us with that information. And at that time, it may be appropriate to have comment or shift, but no one's buying anything. They just need the authority to explore the funding option to keep this recommendation moving forward.
Good question. Question.
Yes, Councilmember Cox.
I guess it leaves a lot of open questions. How big is large scale and where exactly is this going to go?
Mayor, if I may respond, Councilmember Cox, this is something that we've had much discussion on in the ED&I committee, and we will continue to have that conversation about specifics regarding a permanent fixture or LED screen. So at some point in the future, I do believe you could expect something coming from committee that would speak to a recommendation around things like what you've inquired about: size, placement. All of those things are things that are currently being explored by staff and will be discussed at ED&I.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is also meant to help activate downtown. I know when I was on the council, it was many years ago, we were asked to permit a big screen so people could come together and watch World Cup games. Same as envisioned now, but also using it for Canes games, football games, soccer games, other sports. But also potentially movies, whatnot. So again, trying to activate downtown, and this was one of the recommendations from the public realm study. We have a motion in a second, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Okay, that was 7-1 with Councilor Cox opposed. Thank you, Evan.
We've got the one item remaining in committee, it's the Downtown Raleigh Alliance Public Realm Study. I imagine we'll have that for several months. And like I said, we have a special meeting next week. And that is my committee report.
Hey, thank you very much. There's been a lot of good discussion going on in that committee, and I appreciate everybody's work. Next is the report and recommendation of the Growth and Natural Resources Committee.
No report. Our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, September 28th at 4 p.m. and presently it will be held virtually.
Okay, thank you. Next is report and recommendation of the Safe, Vibrant, and Healthy Communities Committee. We will have a meeting on September 28th at 11:30. An agenda to be announced later. Next is the report and recommendation of the Transportation and Transit Committee.
Thank you. I have 3 items here. The first one was around our tow yards in Raleigh. Currently, tow yards are only allowed in IH, and that is very limited. And you'll understand why we connected this and we held it to talk about the second item that I will mention after this one. But for now, the committee recommends the council to authorize staff to draft a text change to allow the location of tow yards in IS zoning and include a 150-foot yard distance from tow yards from any properties lines containing a dwelling, as well as language limiting use. The draft will be brought back to the full council for consideration before being referred to the Planning Commission.
That has been seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Councilmember Cox is opposed. So that is 7-1.
So the next item we had was around predatory towing. Right now, the way our ordinance is written, there's definitely some issues as far as distance to where people have to go. Right now, they have to be on a transit line. But what we're looking at is making some suggested changes that is in the backup materials that everyone should have had a chance to review. And the committee recommends that we adopt. The motion is the committee recommends the adoption of the ordinance to amend parts 12, chapter 7, entitled Removal and Disposition of Abandoned Nuisance Motor Vehicles as recommended by staff. And all of those changes are listed in your backup materials, which you should have received.
Okay, do we have a second? Mayor Pro Tem Stewart has seconded. Any questions? Okay, all in Councilmember Cox?
Yeah, I know this is coming. I know the committee, they probably did their work to try to get feedback from citizens, but before voting on this, I would like to see this, be presented to citizens and give them an opportunity to provide feedback to us. I'm sure we had input that went into the drafting of this, but now we're not getting the citizen feedback on what the final draft actually is.
So actually, Councilman Cox, the materials that you have before you is what was discussed in committee as the full draft and everything. And it was open. Originally, this was supposed to have been in July, and we moved it back just because of scheduling. So it was open for public comment that entire time.
Yeah, I just feel that the citizen engagement on some of these things is really lacking, and that's concerning to me.
Okay, we also
understand and duly noted.
Situation that we need to deal with predatory towing. So we have a motion and a second. I'm going to call the question. All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? So that vote is 7-1 with Councilmember Cox opposed.
And the third and final item that we had was dealing with West Chef's Place. Some of you may remember that we had residents that came to us at our last meeting before City Council concerning the no parking signs. This was reviewed in the Transportation Committee, and upon review, the committee recommends to uphold staff's recommendation. And that is the motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Councilmember Buffkin has seconded that. All in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous, clerk.
We have no items that have been assigned to us as of today. So with that, we have no scheduled meeting for this month.
The meeting's not over yet, Councilmember Branch. Thank you for your work on this. Okay, next we have the report from the mayor and city council. Going to start with Councilmember Cox.
Yes, I just want to announce 2 community meetings that I have scheduled coming up. One is for September 21st at 7 p.m. These will be virtual meetings. This is with the Wakefield community to review with them the Wakefield Small Area Plan. And the other one is September 23rd, also at 7 p.m. And this is to review with the North Raleigh community about the possibility of establishing a dog park, and to review with the community what the current policy is and what would be needed in order to move forward. And so for the first meeting, the planning department will provide a resource to present the small area plan to the community, and in the second one, the Parks Department will provide a resource to talk about dog parks. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay, can you share this link with us when that becomes
Yes.
available? Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, next we have a Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just real quick, I'm glad to see the continued attention on the need for continued traffic calming and dealing with speeding around the city and across the city. And I appreciate staff staying on top of this. We've had some recent TV reports and articles on this. And I also appreciate this council keeping this as a high priority because it's the #1 concern I hear from folks in my district and really across the city. And to that point, in terms of connectivity and accessibility, I'll join Councilor Buffkin, who mentioned the Crabtree Greenway access earlier about how exciting I am to see that back open, connecting really our whole city with that now. And I know a lot of folks are very excited about that. And I saw a lot of them out there, including Councilor Buffkin. We almost literally ran into each other out there. So it was good to see him and his wife out there and a lot of other people. So again, thanks for all that work. The Crabtree Greenway along in West Raleigh is getting ready to be opened again officially. There's access to it, so that's another major link to out to Umstead and the west side of town. So good things are going on, and I appreciate everyone keeping their attention and focus on these important issues for the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Councilmember Fort.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have one item. Just wanted to congratulate the staff, the park staff, and the folks at the Pullen Arts Center on their opening of their new facility. It's actually gorgeous. I had the opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting and to see many years of, I think about 7 or 8 years of hard work come into fruition. The community seems to be very grateful and looking forward to a lot of opportunities to have more diverse participation with some of our young artists in the community at the center.
Thank you. Next we have Councilmember Buffkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, in my report today, I want to share some sad news. There was a fatal car wreck at the corner of Town and Country in West Millbrook a couple weeks ago. And I've heard from a number of my constituents about their concerns with safety around this intersection. This isn't the first fatal fatality at that intersection, unfortunately, and it's certainly not the first car wreck. So I got great support from the district in hearing from them, including from the police chaplain who reported on the scene to support our officers in dealing with this awful event. And I've been in contact with our staff, who in turn is working with North Carolina DOT to get some safety improvements there. And I'd ask the staff provide us an update in the manager's report when those options have developed enough that you can provide us details. And secondly, on a happier note, members of council, I'd like to mark the Jewish New Year that began yesterday at sundown, Rosh Hashanah, and wish a happy, healthy New Year celebration to all our neighbors of the Jewish faith. As you know, there's 3 large synagogues in my North Raleigh district, and grateful to have those folks in our community, and hope that they all have a happy New Year celebration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Melton.
No report today. I talked enough during committee reports.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stewart.
No report.
Okay. Councilmember Branch.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items. First, I will have a District C meeting on September the 16th. The city staff is in the process of putting all of that out. I will have 2 special guests. I will have our fire chief and police chief both on the call to give a presentation and answer any questions after I give a kind of high level brief update of some items within the district. Also, I want to thank the African American Cultural Affairs Festival Committee for a successful Labor Day weekend. Under COVID standards, it was modified for as much distance and spacing as possible. I want to thank everyone who came out. That everything was outdoors. Thank those that were masked and those that just respected everyone's environment. Again, thank you, staff, for your continued work and all that you do. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Okay, I have a few things. First, I wanted to announce the reappointment of Arnie Morris to the Raleigh Housing Authority. He is the current chair, and he will continue to serve a 4-year term. I also want to thank staff for the great work that they did in the city manager's report. I had asked about ADUs and how we were going to incentivize their use, just looking at being more progressive in that area. The report in this last city manager's report was excellent. So I just wanted to commend staff for great ideas and a job well done. Thank you for that. And then I also wanted to mention the Empowering Steppers from Southeast Raleigh. They recently traveled to Miami and won a national award for their great dance moves and what they bring to the city. So I just wanted to recognize them and say thank you. That's it. Okay, next we have clerk appointments.
Okay, the first item you have on your agenda is the Arts Commission. You have 1 vacancy. Councilmember Fort nominated James Montague. So that will be on your next agenda. The next is, excuse me, Centennial Authority.
Madam Clerk, I did not nominate him for the Arts Commission.
We will double check that. I'm not sure. That's the report I have. So scratch that and we will start all over. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Arts Commission, you have no nominees. Okay. All right. The second is the Centennial Authority. You have 1 vacancy. Mayor Pro Tem Stewart nominated Tia McLaurin. So
and I nominated James Montague for that. That was what his nomination was supposed to be for.
Very good. Thank you for that correction. Okay, the next item is Fair Housing Hearing Board. You have 1 vacancy. Raquel Welch, you can tell my time, can't you? Raquel Rogers received 3 votes and there have been no additional nominations. So that'll be on the next agenda. The next is the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board. In the professional category, you have one vacancy. Thus far, you had received one nominee, Tula Fanucci, received 2 votes, so that will be carried over. Also, on the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, you have another vacancy for community representative, and there have been no nominees for that. The next is the Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board. You have 3 vacancies. Amy Fix received 5 votes, so could be appointed. And then we had a write-in or a nomination for Shelley Winters by Councilmember Fort to serve on as one of the vacancies. So your action would be to appoint Amy Fix and have 2 remaining vacancies. The next is the Historic Resources and Museums Advisory Board. You have 2 vacancies. Jenny Harper and Jane Ford, who were both recommended by the nominating committee, received 6 votes each, so would be appointed. The next item is the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board. You have 1 vacancy. Malay Patel has been nominated. She received 3 votes. Mayor Baldwin nominated Van Fletcher. So those 2 names will be on the next agenda. Planning Commission, you have 1 vacancy. Nominations include Councilmember Branch nominated Ike Wheeler. Councilmember Fort nominated Carmen Cothran, and Mayor Baldwin nominated Irene Godnez. So that will be on the next agenda for consideration. On the Raleigh Transit Authority, you have 1 vacancy for an alternate member. Linda Davis received 1 vote. Latona Williams received 5 votes, so would be appointed. So you have that board filled for right now. The next item is the Substance Use Advisory Commission. You have 1 vacancy. Councilmember Melton nominated Sean Valley. I assume it's the way it's pronounced. So that will be on the next agenda for consideration. And that's all you have for appointments, but nominations. Let me get to it here. On the Arts Commission, the term of Shelley Smith is expiring and she does not wish to be considered for reappointment, so you have 1 vacancy there. The next item is the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau. You have 1 vacancy as the term of Shanat, and I know I apologize before I even try this, N-A-G-U-R-A-J. He is a member at large. His term is expiring. He is eligible for reappointment, would like to be considered for the reappointment, and the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau's nominating committee recommends his appointment.
I'll make a motion to approve Sherratt's renomination. Do I have a second? Councilmember Melton has seconded that. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, Clerk.
Thank you. The next item would be Historic Resources and Museums Advisory Board. There are 3 vacancies. The term of Fred Belladin, Audrey Morgan, and Esther Hall are expiring. Your agenda indicates Ms. Morgan and Ms. Hall would like to be considered for reappointment, but I think Ms. Morgan has indicated she does not wish to be considered. Ms. Hall would like to be. Mr. Belladin is not eligible for reappointment. I think you received a recommendation today from the nominating committee if you would like to consider those. Okay, the next item would be the Human Relations Commission.
Excuse me, Clerk. Let's go back to this for a second. First off, Esther Hall would like to be reappointed, so I'm going to make a motion to reappoint her. Do I have a second? Councilmember Buffkin. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Okay, so we are reappointing Ms. Hall. Is the nomination that you're referring to from the committee Craig Brookins?
Correct.
Has everybody had a chance to review his resume? Pretty impressive. Do we want to consider?
I nominate Mr. Brookins.
Okay, do we have a second? Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. All in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, Clerk.
And I assume you nominate him for appointment, not just nominated. Is that correct? You've appointed him. Is that correct?
We appointed him
Okay,
just now.
thank you. All right, on the Human Relations Commission, you received a letter of resignation from your Bob Lima, and therefore you have one vacancy.
I would just want to mention that he was appointed as the young member, and I think there's an age, well, there's an age range there. So if you could remind us of that range, so we will have to look for somebody in that age range to replace him.
I think the age range is to have a member 21 or less in age.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Then the next you have is Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board. The term of Charles Townsend is going to be expiring. He is not eligible for reappointment as he served since 2015. So you do have that one for consideration. The next is the Raleigh Sister Cities. You have 2 vacancies. The term of Yumina Ubride and David Kilbride are expiring. Both are eligible for reappointment and would like to be considered for reappointment.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reappoint them. Seconded by Councilmember Melton. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that was unanimous, Clerk.
And that's all I have, unless you really want to appoint Raquel Welch to something. Most of you don't even remember her, but age has its privileges. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Clerk. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the City Attorney.
I don't have any report, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the City Clerk.
You received in your agenda packet copies of minutes of the August 17 work session, regular session, and the special session held on the 23rd for consideration of.
Move for approval, Mayor.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Stewart. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you, and that's all I have at this point.
Okay. Next, we will enter into closed session. I have a motion to read. GS 143-318-11A1 and A3 to consult with the city attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to prevent disclosure of information that is privileged and confidential pursuant to the laws of North Carolina are not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the general statutes, including the handling and or settlement of a potential claim in the following cases. 2 County Superior Court cases entitled City of Raleigh versus Wilson G. Bangus, Irrevocable Trust. 5 Wake County Superior Court cases entitled City of Raleigh versus Gupta, and Oberlin Investors LLC versus City of Raleigh. GS 143-318-11A2 to prevent disclosure of an honorary degree, scholarship prize, or similar award. GS 143-318-11A4 to discuss matters relating to the location expansion of industries or other businesses within city, including consideration of economic development incentives that may be offered to entities considering such expansion. And then GS 143-318-11A5 to instruct city staff concerning the position be taken in negotiating the price and other material terms of a proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease. So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Clerk, passes unanimously. We have just returned from closed session where the council.
Mayor, hold on. Sorry, they're not ready. They're there, but they're not ready. False alarm, false countdown. Okay. They are ready. They're ready now. Go.
We have just returned from closed session where the council provided direction to staff on the items listed in the closed session motion. Council will reconvene at 7 p.m. Alternatively, if council takes action in closed session that needs to be reported out of closed session, I would have reported that information. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody at 7 o'clock.
About that, I don't know what I was thinking.